chocolate in here and warm up the little vocal cords before you play.
Make sure it's all over
You've
your
been
teeth.
practicing all night?
Yeah. Big toothy grins of the camera.
Oh, good.
We're on the light side a little
You
tonight.
got it.
I'll do it.
I'll bring a pickle. Well, it's early.
I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Board of Aldermen to order on Wednesday, September 14th, 2022 at 7:30 PM in the Aldermanic Chamber. The prayer will be offered by City Clerk Dan Healy, and Alderman Camo will lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Almighty God, we have the high honor and serious duty to manage the affairs of our beloved city. Fill us, O God, with a spirit of unity and understanding, which enables us to face our multiple problems with a serene mind, with justice and charity for all, so that any and all decisions made by us will always be for the betterment and greater happiness of all of our fellow citizens. So help us God. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance.
Alderman O'Brien.
Present.
Alderman Sullivan.
Here.
Alderman Clee. Alderman Moran.
Present.
Alderman Lopez. Alderman Jettie. Alderman Clemmons.
Here.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Here.
Alderman Como.
Present.
Alderman Dowd.
Present.
Alderman Govea.
Here.
Alderman Karen.
Here.
Alderman Tebow.
Here.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Here.
Alderman Wilshire.
Here.
We have 12 present, 3 absent.
Thank you. Also with us this evening is Mayor Jim Donchis and Corporation Counsel Steve Bolton. Mayor, did you wish to address the board this evening?
Yes, Madam President, thank you very much. Well, first, I wanted to extend condolences to Sue Lovering and her family as a result of the passing of her husband, Roy. This happened just last week. Sue had worked for the city for 30-plus years, first in the legal office, then for a long time as the assistant to the Board of Aldermen, and ultimately for several years as city clerk. She had retired in order to, I believe, to spend time with Roy, and unfortunately he passed away sooner than everyone had hoped. So I think many people are very sad over this, and my condolences certainly go out to her and the family. I wanted to mention, Madam President, the election yesterday. City Clerk Dan Healy did a very good job, along with all of the people who work in the polls, moderators on down. No serious issues. Dan told me that he got home at 4 a.m., so that's a pretty good day. He probably got up at 4 as well, or 3. So that's a long day, and that was his first election, and it went well, and I want to thank and congratulate everybody on that. I wanted to mention, Madam President, that in the packet is the communication which reaffirms the city's AAA bond rating for, I think, the 5th year in a row. This is a very difficult distinction to attain, and CFO Griffin and the financial team, as well as the Board of Aldermen, everybody deserves credit here. Now, the AAA bond rating is important to us because interest rates are going up, and interest will increase on any areas where we borrow money, and the AAA bond rating helps to keep that interest rate down. And with that, I wanted to mention briefly, and I'll get into the details at the public hearing on October 6th, the proposals we have made regarding the surplus. We are proposing that $4 million be applied to the tax rate. And in order to shore up the bond rating, we are proposing that some money be returned to the assigned and unassigned fund balance. Money that, in the assigned fund balance, you will recall that we used 1.5 million to support the teacher's contract, and we used, actually 1.6 million, and we used 500,000 to support or make up for the over expenditure in the fire department, 2.1 million. So we're proposing that that money be restored into the assigned fund balance, and that $2 million be allocated into the unassigned fund balance, which will keep us at 11.2% of the budget in the fund balances, which is the same percentage as we've had in the past. And both of those are important to the bond rating because the rating agencies believe very strongly that those balances should be maintained and improved if at all possible. We are also proposing that 1.5 million go into the overlay reserve to replace the money that we used at the end of the year to support the abatement settlements. And finally, SURF equipment was not budgeted in the city budget at all. And so again, we are proposing that $3 million be allocated to SURF to make it possible to continue to buy equipment for the city. But again, we will go through the details. There's more to it than just that, but we will go through the details at the public hearing on October 6th. And of course, at the Budget Committee, we will answer any questions or anything that people wish to raise. Next, Madam President, I wanted to mention the 2 appointments to the Aggregation Committee. What this has to do with is trying to improve electric rates for national customers. The state legislature authorized the cities and towns to undertake, either as a consolidated group or on their own, to undertake the purchase of electricity on behalf of the default utility, who is Eversource. This could enable us to purchase electricity at a lower rate. Currently, the rate is 22 cents a kilowatt. That doubled recently, and it may be possible to save a significant amount on that. But any aggregation plan comes back to you, but I just wanted to highlight that for you to underline the fact that the city is trying to work on electric rates. We've been on this for several years and may have the ability in the end to help our national consumers. I also wanted to mention, Madam President, O-2225. There are 2 ordinances here which were proposed and designed to help bring more decorum and civility to the public comment periods. O-2224 prevents swearing or obscene language from being used. Certainly that is something that we should enact. I did bring forward O-2225, which would say that at committee meetings, the comments would have to be directed to the business of the committee. However, when we discussed that ordinance at the Personnel Committee, there was some reservations expressed by some members of the board. The first one, O-2224, I think is more important. And given the reservations expressed, I'm going to ask that you indefinitely postpone O-2225. We are not trying to cut off public comment or take public comment on various issues. We are just trying to bring some order and decorum to the public comment sections of these meetings. Finally, the existing ordinance does require that the comments at the beginning of a committee meeting be directed to the agenda. And if you indefinitely postpone 2225 and pass 2224, and that's Alderman Clemens' ordinance, it will prohibit the use of improper language, but at the same time leave the public comment sections of the committees the way it is. Finally, Madam President, I know I've gone on a little bit here, but I wanted to congratulate the Silver Knights for winning their 6th straight championship. Or not 6th straight, their 6th championship. They've been doing very well, and if you watched them through the season, the first half of the season didn't look so good. They were way down in the standings, and then they came on really strongly in the second half, qualified for the playoffs. They played Vermont. They lost the first game of the 3-game playoff by a very one-sided margin, but then they came back and won the second, third game, securing for Nashua again the 6th championship. So I wanted to congratulate them and everyone involved with the team. And that's all I have, Madam President.
Thank you. Response to the remarks of the mayor. Oh, just for the record, Alderman Clee had joined us at 7:35. Response to the remarks of the mayor. Alderman Clee.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you for my the lateness. I apologize to everybody. I had to be up in the ZBA. I too would like to pass on my condolences to the Lovering family. I know that this is a very hard time for them, and she wanted to spend much time, and it was robbed from her. So my heart goes out to the family. Thank you.
Response to the remarks of the mayor. Alderman Dowd.
Yes, just a couple brief things. I'd also like to send my condolences to the Lovering family, especially Sue, and I've known Sue and Roy for many, many years, and it's always been a dedicated, hard worker for the city, and our prayers should go out to her. The other thing is, at least I know in Ward 2, and I've talked to several other aldermen, looks like the election went very, very smoothly. And congratulations to the new city clerk for that's always a difficult time, and you don't get much of a rest before you get to do that again. The other thing is, congratulations to the finance people here in Nashua for keeping our bond rating at AAA. We have AAA ratings with all of the major bond companies, which not many cities in New England have. And that allows us to borrow money at a very, very reasonable rate compared to other cities. So, thanks.
Alderman Tebow.
Thank you, Madam President. I spent about 3 hours at Ward 8 last night, and I thought everything went very smoothly. I knew all the workers there at the polls, and they all did a great job. And I think, that's one of the toughest roles to fill in this city, is to try to get people to do all the work that's done at the polling locations throughout the 9 wards. And, the pay is not enticing to get people to spend 16 hours and some more than that. And I know we have at least one moderator in the crowd out there. And so everything that was done yesterday looked like it went very smoothly. And thank you, Mr. Clerk, and all the people that worked yesterday. Great job.
I too would like to commend the work that the city clerk did. I was at Ward 4 with my son, who's the clerk of the ward, and I think things went pretty smoothly, so kudos. Recognition period. I'm going to introduce Matt Sullivan, Director Sullivan, to introduce his new planning manager.
Great. Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I'm Matt Sullivan, Community Development Division Director for the City of Nashua. Thank you for the opportunity to provide a brief introduction this evening to the city's new planning manager, Sam Durfee. Sam joins us by way of the City of Concord, where he served as a senior planner previously, where he served as a Central New Hampshire Regional Planning Commission as a planner there. Sam's most recent work focused on staffing the City of Concord's transportation and land use development review processes. And specifically, Sam focused on assisting the City of Concord with a recent comprehensive land use code update. And if that sounds familiar to all of you, it positions him well to begin that process anew here in the City of Nashua as we embark on a comprehensive update here in the city over the coming year to 2 years. And so we're really thrilled to have Sam on board, particularly because of those skills that he brings to the table. If it would suit the board, I would like to just have a few moments of Sam introducing himself to you all. I hope you have an opportunity to work with him in one capacity or another. He'll sort of serve in my absence, staffing the zoning board, planning board and other land use boards within the city. Certainly I'll stay involved to some extent, but I look forward to you forming a relationship with him as he gets involved. So Sam, if you wouldn't mind.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. It is a pleasure to be here. Director Sullivan gave me very little to say. He covered my background quite well. I'm very excited to be here for the city. I did a lot of research before making the decision to come here. The big selling point was the recently updated master plan and the vision that's so well articulated in that plan. It will make my job through the code update process very easier. Concord is going the other way around with doing the code first and then the master plan. So I applaud you for that effort, and it is a tremendous plan. It is very user-friendly, very graphical, which is always approachable. So looking very much forward to working with that plan and working with all of you over the coming years. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Durfee. Welcome to the city.
Thank you.
Reading minutes of previous meetings. There being no objection, I'll declare the minutes of the regular and special Board of Aldermen meetings of June 13th, August 9th, and August 22nd be accepted, placed on file, and the reading suspended. Communications requiring only procedural actions and written reports from liaisons.
Communication has been received from Julian Long, Urban Programs Manager, regarding Community Development Block Grant reallocation, Department of Public Works. Kimberly Kleiner, Administrative Services Director, regarding 2022 full revaluation update. John Griffin, CFO, Treasurer, Tax Collector, and Cheryl Linder, Treasurer, Management Officer, regarding S&P AAA rating and bond. From Julian Long, Urban Programs Manager, regarding Home American Rescue Plan Act allocation plan. From Kevin Pusolo, Grant Manager, regarding the American Rescue Plan Act. From Kevin Pusolo, Grant Manager, regarding the Brine Discretionary Grant. From Mayor Jim Donchis, regarding report on surplus and overlay fiscal year 2023. From Camille Correa, Transit Administrator, and Matt Sullivan, Community Development Director, regarding NHDOT 2023 capital grant funding request for first and second aldermanic reading.
There being no objection, I'll accept the communications and place them on file. Now is the period for public comment relative to items to be expected to be acted upon this evening. The first person we have signed up is Julian Long.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Julian Long, Urban Programs Manager. I am requesting a proposed amendment to R22-057, which is regarding our most recent round 4 CARES Act allocation for the Community Development Block Grant Program. Our HUD representative contacted us late this afternoon with concerns about the eligibility of one of the activities proposed for funding. That would be court-appointed special advocates of New Hampshire. So I believe in your package should be some text recommending that funding be reduced to 0 for court-appointed special advocates, and that $10,000 be apportioned equally among the remaining 7 sub-recipients. Thank you.
Thank you. Paula Johnson?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. First of all, I'd like to just give my condolences to the Lovering family because I worked with her when I was on the Board of Aldermen, and deepest sympathy for her. It's not easy to lose a spouse. I'm here to talk about 22024, about crude, vulgar, profane, and obscene remarks are prohibited. And the presiding officer has authority to terminate the remarks of any speaker when such remarks do not adhere to this ordinance or other applicable law. I don't agree that anybody should stand up here and swear, or threaten anybody. But unfortunately, under the First Amendment rights, and it's been challenged in court. And I remember when I got on the board of education, I asked about that. And I keep asking about it because we can't just shut people down. It's their rights, First Amendment. I don't agree that people should stand up and threaten us that they're going to kill us. But I guess the question is, we need to toughen up here. Toughen up, people, because the First Amendment to the United States Constitution is the nation's most important amendment because it guarantees a right fundamental to free society and that of free speech. When we take our free speeches away, we take our rights away. Our rights have been taken away during COVID. The rights to be able to go in any place if you had a medical condition and you couldn't wear a mask. The founding fathers understood that government wouldn't work if the people could be suppressed from criticizing or challenging their leaders. We the people, although I am elected, and I don't mind if anybody comes and challenges me as an elected official, and I'm speaking in behalf of myself, challenge me. I don't have that problem with that. But we should not take that right away from the people to challenge our elected officials. And that's what the problem is in this country. And the other problem is that we can't work together as a team on either side of the aisle. Over the years, the courts have broadly interpreted the First Amendment to include virtually all types of speech and consistency sided with those speaking over those seeking to silence them.
1 minute.
So if we do this, someone's going to challenge with this. And I don't think this city wants to wind up in court, especially federal court, because the New Hampshire State Supreme Court has already ruled on this from people in other communities being thrown out because of what they said. I would think very hard, and you know what, people? We're here to serve the people, and if they don't like what we're doing, they have the right to tell us, although
30
they might
seconds.
not like how they're saying it. Toughen up. Thank you.
Lori Ortolano.
Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. I want to address the public comment ordinance that you brought before you. I sent you all an email, and I showed you what the ordinance was like 2 years ago, what was written in there, that remarks shall be civil, rude or profane remarks are prohibited. You struck that under the guidance of Attorney Bolton, not recommending that. The one thing Attorney Bolton said, I would have to say that some of the, he said you might be able to get away with allowing profane, but he wouldn't recommend that, and he wouldn't recommend leaving that language in. So something's happened in 2 years that's allowed you to create this ordinance that he feels comfortable with, and I think somebody here should be asking him what case law has occurred, what has happened that makes this work. You know, I'm going to remind you that I was up at the microphone not long ago, and I was at a finance committee meeting, and I was very upset with Director Cummings, and I said he's unfit for the kind of work he does. He's overassigned. He's deeply in violation of the law when it comes to right to know. His door is always closed and locked. I've been going to City Hall for 3 years, and it's never been open. I can't get anyone to answer it when I knock at it. He doesn't consider himself a public servant. He won't make himself available to citizens. He's a completely obnoxious, arrogant man. At that point, I was cut off by the mayor. And I was told that night after night, you just lambast all the employees with these scurrilous comments. I don't, night after night. That really isn't approvable. Oh, it is a provable thing to go after. But I was shut down and I lost my public comment. Now, I know I said obnoxious and arrogant. Is that rude, crude, profane, or obscene? Is that what lost me my comment? I also, Attorney Bolton in this memo from 2 years ago in the meeting minutes from October 13th of 2020, he said that he absolutely does not support that you can't shut people down who are criticizing elected officials or employees. We have the right to criticize. This board doesn't believe it, and the two biggest violators of that are Alderman Moran and Alderman Lopez. Alderman Lopez stated when I went to the finance meeting, or the Human Affairs Committee meeting, you're blatantly being disrespectful to employees, because I was critical. So I was shut down. He didn't want that.
30
Called a point of
seconds.
order and said it was, it was not meeting decorum for the city. last meeting, Melbourne Moran stated, public meeting that I was at, that he complimented a citizen that came up here and spoke, and it's a citizen who I happen to love and I think is always like spot on and is so courteous. I send him emails of thanks all the time. Well, Alderman Moran did as well. And he said, you're the kind of person I'd like to have coffee with. The problem is Alderman Moran doesn't want to have coffee with somebody who is disagreeable. Thank you. We'll discuss this more later.
That concludes public comment. Communications requiring final approval.
Communication has been received from Mayor Jim Donches regarding multi-year contract award, Granite Telecommunications.
Alderman Kamon.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion to place on file and approve a 3-year contract with Granite Telecommunications LLC in converting POTS lines to EPIC lines in an amount not to exceed $93,106.80, which is $2,586.20 a month. Funding will be through Department 120 Telecommunications, Fund 55109, Telecommunications Telephone, Voice/General Fund.
Heard the motion. Discussion on that motion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Communication has been received from Mayor Jim Donches regarding multi-year contract award, New Era Technology.
Alderman Govea.
Thank you, Madam President. I move to place on file and approve a 3-year renewal of the Palo Alto firewall for backup internet line with New Era Technology of Portsmouth, New Hampshire, in an amount not to exceed $24,522.80. Funding will be through Department 122 Information Technology, Fund 54407, Software Maintenance/General Fund, $18,702.80. 54414, Hardware Maintenance/General Fund, $5,820.
You've heard the motion. Is there discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
Communication has been received from Tim Cummings, Economic Development Director, regarding communication approval and place on file a contract amendment for professional engineering services related to the Nashua Downtown Riverfront Implementation Project, VHB Inc. for Water Street Design Services.
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you, Madam President. I move to place on file and approve the amendment for design services for Water Street work to VHB in an amount not to exceed $26,730 for a total purchase order of $252,095. Funding will be through the TIF account created to implement the Downtown Riverfront project.
You've heard the motion. Is there discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
Communication has been received from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager, regarding contract award for Nashua Public Library.
Alderman Timmons.
Thank you, Madam President. I move to accept and place on file and award the contract to Sissy Corporation, DBA Sydney, in the amount of $73,710 for the integrated library system. Funds are available in Department 179 Nashua Public Library. Funds, technology operation escrow from FY 2019 and computer software escrow from 2019 for a total of $54,500 and general fund $19,210.
You've heard the motion. Is there discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries.
Communication has been received from Mayor Jim Donches regarding contract award in excess of $1 million, 2022 sewer siphon rehabilitation.
Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Madam President. I motion to place on file and approve the construction contract for siphon rehabilitation with Instaform Technologies LLC of Chesterfield, Missouri, in an amount not to exceed $1,173,000. Funding will be through Department 167 Wastewater Fund Bond Activity Sewer Infrastructure Improvements.
You've heard the motion. Is there discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries.
Communication has been received from Jennifer McCormick, Library Director, regarding requesting a special joint meeting for a presentation on the facility assessment.
There being no objection, I will accept the communication, place it on file, and schedule a special Board of Aldermen meeting on Tuesday, October 25th, 2022 at 7 p.m. before the regular Board of Aldermen meeting.
Communication has been received from Tim Cummings, Economic Development Director, regarding communication approval and place on file a contract for professional services related to the Nashua Downtown Riverfront Implementation Project for VHB, Inc.
There being no objection, I'll accept the communication and place it on file and refer it to the Finance Committee. Petitions.
None.
Nominations, appointments, and elections.
Housing Trust Fund Committee. Christy E. Bisada, term to expire September 1st, 2025, 12 Nutmeg Drive, Nashua, New Hampshire, 03062. Kyle Schneck, term to expire September 1st, 2025, 26 Chester Street, Nashua, New Hampshire, 03064.
There being no objection, I'll accept the appointments by the mayor as read and refer them to the Personnel Administrative Affairs Committee. Reports of committees. There being no objection, I will declare the reports of the June 7th, June 8th, June 9th, June 20th, and August 22nd, 2022 Budget Review Committee be accepted and placed on file. There being no objection, I will declare the report of the August 16th, 2022 Committee on Infrastructure be accepted and placed on file. There being no objection, I'll declare the reports of the June 13th and August 15th Human Affairs Committee be accepted and placed on file. There being no objection, I will declare the report of the June 14th, 2022 Pennachuck Special Water Committee be accepted and placed on file. There being no objection, I'll declare the report of the June 6, 2022 Personnel Administrative Affairs Committee be accepted and placed on file. Confirmation of mayor's appointments.
Cultural Connections Committee.
There being no objection, I will confirm the reappointment of Nanyam Egbono, Interfaith Council, P.O. Box 209, Nashua, to the Cultural Connections Committee with a term to expire April 30th, 2025. Is Nanyam here? Don't see her. Okay. The oath of office will be administered at a later date. Electric Aggregation Committee. There being no objection, I will confirm the new appointments of Adrian George, 18 Shingle Mill Drive, Nashua, and G. Frank Tees of 57 Northeastern Boulevard, Nashua, to the Electric Aggregation Committee. I don't see either of those gentlemen here tonight either. They will be sworn in at a later date. Unfinished business resolutions.
Second reading of R-22-050 relative to the transfer of $8,400 from Department 194 Contingency Account 70100 General Contingency to Department 144 Edgewood and Suburban Cemeteries, Accounting Classification 51 Salaries and Wages.
Alderman Karen.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to make a motion for final passage of R-22-050.
You've heard the motion. Is there discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. And Resolution 2250 is declared duly adopted.
Second reading of R-22-051 relative to the acceptance of $95,000 from the United States Department of Justice into Police Grant Activity 2022 Rhine Discretionary Grant Program.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to motion for final passage of R-22-051.
Motion is for final passage. Discussion on that motion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries.
Second reading of R-22-052 relative to the acceptance of $91,578 from the State of New Hampshire Department of Justice into Police Grant Activity Fiscal Year 2023 COVID Relaxed Restrictions Grant Program.
Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion for final passage of R-22-052.
Motion is for final passage. Discussion on that motion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries.
Second reading of R-22-053 relative to the transfer of $34,927 from Department 174 Welfare Administration into Department 172 Community Health and Department 173 Environmental Health.
Alderwoman Kelly, sorry.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to move to amend R-22-053 by replacing it with a golden-rod copy of amendments as recommended by the Budget Review Committee.
Motion is to amend with the goldenrod copy. Any discussion on those amendments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Alderwoman Kelly.
I'd like to move for final passage of R-22-053 as amended.
Motion is for final passage as amended. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Resolution 2253 is declared duly adopted as amended.
Second reading of R-22-054, changing the name of Old Harris Road to Solar Lane.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion for final passage of R-22-054.
Motion is for final passage. Discussion on that motion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and Resolution 2254 is declared duly adopted.
Second reading of R-22-055 relative to the supplemental appropriation of $300,000 of fiscal year 2022 unanticipated food services related revenue into Fund Number 2100 Food Services Fund.
Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to move for final passage of R-22-055 by roll call pursuant to Charter Section number 49.
The motion is for final passage by roll call. Is there discussion on that motion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yay.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Moran.
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons.
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Como.
Yay.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Alderman Govea.
Yes.
Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
Yes.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
13 yeas, 0 nays.
That motion carries, and Resolution 2255 is declared duly adopted.
Second reading of R-22-056 relative to the transfer of coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds established by the American Rescue Plan, ARPA, in fiscal year 2022 supplemental appropriations in the amount of $14,500,000.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion for final passage of R-22-056 by roll call pursuant to Charter Section 49.
Motion is for final passage. Discussion on that motion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Moran.
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons.
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Como.
Yay.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Alderman Govea.
Yes.
Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
Yes.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes.
Alderwoman Wilshire.
Yes.
13 yeas, 0 nays.
That motion carries, and Resolution 2256 is declared duly adopted.
Second reading of R-22-057, amending the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Consolidated Plan for fiscal years 2021 to 2025 to accept Round 4 CDBG-CV funding under the 2020 CARES Act.
Alderwoman Timmons.
I move to amend R-22-057 by replacing it with the goldenrod copy of the amendments as recommended by the Human Affairs Committee.
You've heard the motion, and the Director of Urban Programs addressed this at the beginning of the meeting, that there was an organization that may not have been eligible, that they took that money and reallocated it to the other organizations that applied. Motion is to amend. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Alderwoman Timmons.
Thank you, Madam. To further amend R 22057 by reducing funding for court-appointed special advocates of New Hampshire to 0. Advocate an additional $1,428.57 to each of the remaining 7 sub-recipients and approve the following amended allocations. Family Promise of Southern New Hampshire, $25,742.27. Hillsborough County Child Advocacy Center, $25,742.27. United Way of Greater Nashua, $20,328.11. Lamprey Healthcare, $25,742.26. Boys and Girls Club, $25,742.26. National Children's Home, $25,742.26. The Youth Council, $19,928.57, for a total of $168,968.
So I will be abstaining from this vote. I work for one of the organizations, National Children's Home. So you've heard the motion. Is there discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? One abstention. That motion carries. Resolution 2257 is declared duly adopted as amended. Unfinished business ordinances.
Madam President, we voted on the amendment, we still have to vote on final
Oh,
passage.
my bad, sorry. Okay, so, motion for final passage as amended.
For final passage of R 22057 as amended.
Thank you, Alderman Kamal. You've heard the motion, is there discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? One abstention. That motion carries, and Resolution 2257 is declared duly adopted as amended. Unfinished business ordinances.
Second reading of O-22-024 relative to public comment.
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd move for final passage of O-2224, and I'd like to speak to that.
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you. So, very simply, this ordinance basically, and I spoke to this at the committee level, so I'm going to reiterate it tonight, though. Basically, we have the powers that are invested in this and the changes that are invested already. What this does, though, is it makes it clear to the public that we do not tolerate vile language. Now, the comments that were made tonight in public comment regarding this ordinance, I agree with 95% of what was said by the two speakers, meaning that you can't cut somebody off because you don't agree with what they're saying. You can't cut somebody off because they're because of what they're saying, or maybe because they disagree with you, or whatever the case may be. Where I draw the line is, we're on television. There's the FCC, and there's children that watch these meetings. These meetings are open to the public. They're open up, which means the children could be present here. Not to mention the fact that it's a public body and we should have decorum. And so if somebody is being outrageous and saying bad words, which we all know what they are, then I think the chairman should cut them off. I think that that's unacceptable behavior. And so all this ordinance does is just make that very clear to the public that this is not something that's tolerated here. If you want to speak like that, you can do so outside of these chambers, but we're not going to tolerate it here. And quite frankly, I don't understand how that's controversial. So I hope that I can get everyone's support on this evening. Thank you.
You've heard the motion. Further discussion on the motion. Alderman Tebow.
Thank you, Madam President. I also agree with Alderman Clemmons. I think, 95% of what they said is fine. I mean, this board the employees of the city have tolerated a lot of language from Ms. Ortolano. And, you know, they've been called lots of names. They've all been called, I think everybody here has been called incompetent except maybe Alderman Sullivan, Alderman Camo, and Alderman Govea. Every city employee, I think, or at least head of every city employee, except Mr. Sullivan, because I believe Director Sullivan was told he was a good guy at one of these meetings, but everybody else has been called incompetent. And you know what? That's fair game in this country that we live in. But we've had children sitting in on these meetings, literally right in this boardroom, right here, right in this chamber. And to say that word and then to have zero contrition, to try to bring out the Constitution against it, to say that they do it in Britain. So in Britain, I guess we're in Britain. We're not. In the United States of America, that word is not acceptable to most women that at least I know, and probably not a lot of the men. When someone called Miss Scare that name right in this chamber after a meeting, Alderman Moran and myself took that man outside, and we clearly said we don't tolerate that language, despite the fact that we did not have the ideology of the person that was called that name. It's just not right. To Alderman Clement's point, why is that controversial? No apology to the city, no apology to us, no apology to the people that were on that meeting that night. And I don't think it's going against constitutional rights. You want to sue the city? Go ahead. You got many suits against the city anyway. You might as well add one more. Attorney Bolton's ready. He's got his staff ready to go. So, I mean, I just think it's already something we can do. We're just making it clearer. That's it. Thank you.
Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm not going to support this tonight for a few reasons. I think in the language of the ordinance, it says crude, vulgar, profane, obscene. They are not tolerated, they're prohibited, in fact. Now, we just use the word incompetent. I don't know, is incompetent crude? Is it vulgar? Is it profane? Maybe it's not to you, but maybe it is to other people. I think the language in here is very loose, and it's open to interpretation. What happens here and then 25 years from now, I think could be completely interpreted in a different way. I also think in this ordinance, when you look at it on its own, it's fine. But I'm watching the trend line. We've taken away Zoom. The letters are no longer in the packet. We had this. We had the other ordinance that has been tabled indefinitely. And I'm watching the trend line, and it concerns me. And it's been mentioned around this horseshoe about public comment that it's not required by state law or anything like that. Now, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic when I say this, but I get concerned about suppression creep, that we start here and then we just keep moving the goalposts. And I think that we need to stop it here. And it was mentioned in public comment. I would like to ask a question to Corporation Counsel through you. What has changed in the last 2 years? Because apparently 2 years, something that rhymed with this came before it and wasn't supported. So I'd just like to know what has changed since then.
The language of the two ordinances are not identical. I was supposedly, and perhaps I did, say you could get away with prohibiting profanity. If I said you could get away with it, that was probably not the most artful way of expressing it. I probably should have said then that it was my opinion that a court would uphold a prohibition on profane language during public comment. And I still think that's true.
Thank you. One more, please?
Yeah.
I would also add that if we did nothing tonight, nothing, if there was no ordinance here, a chairperson for a committee or this meeting could halt public comment, as was stated by Alderman Clemens, who sponsored this ordinance. So for that reason, I'm just not going to support it. Thanks.
I have a comment to what you said. The fact that we're not putting public communications on the agenda does not mean we're suppressing anyone. They still have the ability to come here and speak. They have the ability to send us a letter, send us an email, send us any communication they need for us to get, they can send us. So we're not suppressing anyone in that manner.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Clee.
Thank you, Madam President. I actually wasn't going to speak on this, but in the recent weeks and the months since that Finance Committee meeting had happened, I received a lot of phone calls from constituents who were very upset by it. And the fact that we've had to, I think, in our history, there's only been like 2 times we've had to put up a warning. And then it had to be bleeped to the point where the word was being used as the mayor himself was trying to speak. The fact that the mayor was insulted, that did not get bleeped. But the word that I would personally, as Alderman People said, take very, very, it's to me one of the worst words that can be used. Putting that aside, I did have a constituent who wanted their child to come to one of our sessions and listen because they were learning about government. And I said, yes, it'd be really good. I thought it was an exciting thing. She did not come to that particular meeting. She was coming to the next Board of Aldermen meeting, and I got a phone call, and she said, I will never bring my child into that meeting, nor will I allow my child to watch. She was so disgusted by it. I don't want that reputation here. And as Alderman Clemens said, this is just reminding the public. And sometimes I think it's good to remind the public, and legislation helps us remind the public. So thank you.
Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Madam President. I probably would say I agree with 99.9% with former Alderwoman Johnson. Yes, and Board of Education member Johnson said, I really do believe I think any member of the public can say whatever they want to us as a body. I sleep at night the same, no matter what. If you're nice to me or mean to me, it doesn't matter. I'm a well-adjusted individual, I think. But I think, why I jumped on to Alderman Clemens' ordinance was the children of the city and sending a message to their parents that use of the C word by the other speaker, I can't recall her name at the moment, was inappropriate, and that as their elected officials, we're going to do something about it. Even though we might already have the power, we're going to let everyone know that we can wield that power to make sure that their kids can be taught language the way their parents want it to be taught to them. I think this is a pro-family, pro-children of Nashua ordinance, quite frankly, Alderman Clemens. And I appreciate you bringing it forth so quickly. And not once did the person who used that word apologize to any kids in the city. Maybe that's why, she lost in a landslide to 2 very, 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 very smart people in the city. But I would say that it's not beneath anyone to apologize. And it's a struggle to see this happen day in and day out when you're wrong. And this is just pointing it out.
Alderwoman Kelly, and then Alderman Tebow.
Thank you. I don't think there's an argument here about some of the specific situations and what people have been seeing online. And my children listen to these, or at the very beginning, they used to listen and watch Mom on TV. And there have definitely been some moments that have been just not appropriate for children. And I would also add to that if any of the aldermen in the horseshoe were to use some of the language that has been coming out, we would be hearing quite a bit from the public on that. So I think decorum in this chamber is really important. I think we can call each other out on whatever's going on. We can call out the job that we as elected officials are doing or aren't doing. That is perfectly acceptable. But the decorum and civility needs to come back. I am concerned, the same way I was concerned before, about the subjectivity of some of these words. We had talked about civil and what does that mean? And I would love to ask Attorney Bolton if he has the same concerns when I had this the last time we were talking about civil and rude around crude or vulgar. I think profane is pretty clear, but what are your thoughts on crude, vulgar, or obscene?
I think crude, vile, profane, and obscene are synonymous in this context.
If I could follow
I
up.
do not feel the same way about expressions like civil and rude, which I think are too vague and open to interpretation.
So to clarify, you feel that that's all just a synonym for profane and where?
I think they refer to words we would all recognize when they were spoken.
Thank you.
Alderman Tebow.
Thank you, Madam President. And I think over the whole suppression thing, I mean, we didn't have Zoom 2 years ago. That was added for COVID. So I don't think we're taking anything away that we didn't have it for 100 years. And I know technology keeps going up and stuff, and you know, we should use it when we can, and maybe someday we'll have it back again. But again, I don't think we're going towards that way. And in this case, you know, I think we know that incompetence is not profane. And I know, you know, people think differently about different words. I get that piece of it. But I mean, do I have to amend this to George Carlin's, you know, 7 words you can't say on TV? Because those are the kind of words that we don't want to use here, right? And so, I mean, again, I'm just saying, we shouldn't have to call out the profanity that's used, and it's just not appropriate. And I think, you know, I mean, Alderman Sullivan, you must know that that word that she used is bad. I haven't heard you or a couple of the people in this horseshoe say that that was a bad word to say in front of children, in front of anyone. And to defend that, I think, is just wrong. We're not looking to cut anybody's. They can call us whatever they want. They can send me an email calling me that if they want. And I'm sure maybe tonight I'll get some. And that's perfectly okay. But when we're on TV and we're in front of everybody and we're in front of children perhaps, there's just words you wouldn't use in front of your children. At least I wouldn't. Thank you.
Alderman Camo and then Alderman Dowd.
Thank you, Madam President. For the record, I do think it's a bad word, if that makes my colleague feel better. I don't have nearly as much of a problem with this ordinance as I did with the following one, which I'm glad to hear that the mayor is recommending that we get rid of that. As far as the language goes, it's tricky to define, but I mean, if you can't get your point across without using those words, then I'm not sure what to tell you. It's not, I don't really view it as viewpoint discrimination. You can come up here and say whatever your views are and state your case without using those words. I mean, I am the president of a church softball league, and a couple of years ago we had to add to our bylaws that profane language resulted in immediate ejection, and we had the same conversation then that we're having now. Well, how do you define profane language? We all know what it is, and I think that anybody should be able to come up to that microphone and speak for their 3 minutes and say whatever they want about whatever topic, whatever views they have without using that language. It's really easy to do. So I will support this one. I will not support the next one.
Alderman Dowd and then Alderman Govea.
Yes, I understand that some of the words are sort of subject to interpretation to some degree, although I think most of us know where the line gets crossed. I think what this ordinance does is gives the person chairing the meeting some discretion. If somebody's getting out of line, I'm chairing a meeting, I'm going to say, stop, please correct your conversation now. If they don't, then I'm going to stop the public speaker and I'm going to ask the committee, do you feel this is inappropriate in accordance with this ordinance? If it is, that person's done. So I think this just gives the chair of the committee some leverage to act without being not in violation of something else. So.
Alderman Govea.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, I believe in this chamber. I believe in the board. I believe in decorum in politics in general. I'm going to vote the same way I did in committee in supporting this legislation. I think the power is already there. If we need to just re-put that in there, then that's fine with me. I believe in the decorum. I believe in the process. And if this is how we keep it more civil, then this is how we keep it more civil. And I'm fine with that.
Alderman Tebow.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to commend Alderman Como because he was there that night and he was one of the few that did not speak out against the word. I wasn't even on that committee and I spoke out against it. So I do applaud him for that and I'm glad he's supporting it. So thank you.
Further discussion? Alderman Moran.
I just want to say that after that Finance Committee meeting, I did have a conversation with Alderman Govea and Alderman Camo, and they did denounce that word to me right after the meeting, so I do commend them for that, and I appreciate it.
Motion before us is for final passage of ordinance 2224. Further discussion, Alderman Clemmons.
They also approached me with their concerns as well, those two aldermen did.
Thank you. Motion is for final passage. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries.
Second reading of O-22-025 relative to public comment at committee meetings.
Alderman Tebow.
I'd like to make a motion to amend O-22-025 by replacing it with the goldenrod copy of amendments as recommended by the Personnel Administrative Affairs Committee. And I know the mayor wants to speak to it, but I'd like to, wants to table it, but am I allowed to speak to it, or do we go right to voting on table?
Well, I think the mayor wanted us to indefinitely postpone.
Oh, indefinitely postpone it?
Yes.
So we can't talk about it?
Do we have to vote to amend it first?
No, I don't think we do.
No, it's already amended in the committee.
We can if you want to amend it, but I don't see the need to if we're
All
going
right, that's
to
fine.
dispose of it.
Okay.
Withdraw your motion.
What?
Withdraw your motion.
And I withdraw my motion.
Alderman Camo.
I'd like to make a motion to indefinitely postpone O-22-025.
Thank you. Motion is for indefinite postponement. Discussion on that motion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
That motion carries. Oh, and ordinance 2225 is declared duly indefinitely postponed. New business resolutions.
First reading of R-22-058 relative to the acceptance of $100,000 from the State of New Hampshire's Department of Transportation into transit grant activity transit capital projects.
Additional sponsors. Alderman O'Brien, Alderman Clee, Alderman Moran, Alderwoman Kelly, Alderman Dowd, Alderman Karen, and myself. Given its first, we're looking for a second reading on this evening. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to make a motion to suspend the rules for a second reading of R-22-58.
You've heard the motion. Discussion on the motion? Alderman Camo.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm going to ask the same question I always ask in this situation. Is this time sensitive that it can't wait for committee?
It is. And Director Sullivan will address that if you'd like.
Absolutely, thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Madam President, members of the board. Matt Sullivan, Community Development Director. This is a time-sensitive matter. This is a 3-year recurring grant that the Nashua Transit System receives for capital funding. Much like many of the grants that are received by both the Public Health Division and Community Development, the state does ask for expeditious response by the city in accepting these funds relative to the governor and council signature process. And so there's not only that timing pressure that we're under, but certainly this capital funding is critical for our continued completion of the transit center reconstruction project. So with both of those things in mind, this request was made this evening for first and second reading. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Sounds pretty cut and dry to me. Thank you, Director Sullivan.
Thank you very much.
Motion is to suspend the rules for a second reading. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
Second reading of R-22-058 relative to the acceptance of $100,000 from the State of New Hampshire's Department of Transportation into transit grant activity transit capital projects.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President. I now move for final passage of R-22-058.
Motion is for final passage. Discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries, and Resolution 2258 is declared duly adopted.
First reading of R-22-059, amending the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Annual Action Plan for fiscal year 2022 relative to the Community Development Block Grant CDBG.
Additional sponsors: Alderman O'Brien, Alderman Clee, Alderman Moran, Alderwoman Kelly, Alderman Dowd, Alderman Karen, Alderman Tebow, Alderwoman Timmons. Given its first reading, I'll assign that to the Human Affairs Committee.
First reading of R-22-060, accepting funds and adopting an allocation plan for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Home Investment Partnerships Programs, funds received through the American Rescue Plan Act.
Additional sponsors: Alderman O'Brien, Alderman Clee, Alderman Moran, Alderwoman Kelly, Alderman Dowd, Alderman Karen, Alderman Tebow, Alderwoman Timmons, and myself. Given its first reading, I'll assign that to the Human Affairs Committee.
First reading of R-22-061, approving a proposed cable television franchise agreement renewal between the City of Nashua and Comcast.
Additional sponsors: Alderman O'Brien, Alderman Camo. Given its first reading, I'll assign that to the Finance Committee.
First reading of R-22-062, establishing the use of fund balance for tax rate.
Additional sponsors: Alderman O'Brien, Alderman Sullivan, Alderwoman Clee, Alderman Moran, Alderman Dowd, Alderman Camo, Alderwoman Karen, Alderman Tebow, and myself. Sorry, Alderman Karen. Given its first reading, I'll assign that to the Budget Review Committee.
First reading of R-22-063, relative to the reappropriation of fiscal year 2023 escrows.
Additional sponsors: Alderman O'Brien, Alderman Dowd, Alderman Clee, Alderman Moran, Alderman Tebow. Given its first reading, I'll assign that to the Budget Review Committee and schedule a special Board of Aldermen public hearing at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, October 4th, 7 p.m. New business ordinances.
None.
Period for general public comment. We have two speakers signed up this evening. Laurie Ortolano.
Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. I'd like to mention, I didn't make the hearing when you talked about the ARPA funds being distributed, but I'd like to request that you consider using some of the street money that's going to be used to do the study of Main Street to potentially look at the traffic and road issue over by Corvo Ruthier and the Henry Hanger Company. When that was approved 2 years ago and put under contract for development, one of the big issues that came up with citizens who actually came out was the traffic issue. You've got the railroad tracks there, you've got the new apartment building, and people wanted that traffic addressed. And the position of the city is, we'll just build it and see what happens. And that left people rather unsatisfied. And the position of the city was, let's see how many people complain. I think with that money, you should, now that that development is underway, consider shifting some of it over into that area and doing that study and looking at it. Because stuff happens and we miss our opportunity to do what we need to do before a building's up and people are in it. So that would be my suggestion, and I was sorry I missed the hearing. I couldn't make it that night. I had an injury and I wasn't able to come out. Also, you know, I've been getting more records now on the Performing Arts Center. I learned from Rich Lannon that in fact the two nonprofit public corporations are in fact 91A compliant businesses. It took me, 6 months to get that answer, and it only came after I filed the lawsuit. I'm getting much more open records. They released all the financial data from the bank accounts to me, so I have that now. I am really concerned with the presentation that Director Cummings gave to, I believe, this board, or at one of the meetings, it was the PEDC meeting, the last one, where he talked and said that he's been told, Alderman Camo asked why there is no liaison from the board serving on that committee. And I think all of Director Cummings' projects should have board liaisons. There's a lot of money over there. That committee, he said that Muskoma Bank and the attorney for the bank stated that they did not want anyone from the city involved with those entities, the Arts Center as a Newmarket tax credit, and the 3 companies, that entity. But when I've received the records over the last 2 weeks, his name, Tim Cummings, Director
30
Cummings'
seconds.
name is signed on every one of those contracts. The bills are coming to him, the contracts are signed. He went before the zoning board for items on there. Rich Lannon said he gets on the phone with me and discusses change orders. If he's able to do that as an employee, why don't we have representation from this board involved? I have some big issues with this and what's going on over there, and you know I'm not a fan of how Director Cummings operates. Thank you.
Paula Johnson.
Paula Johnson, 15 Westbourne Drive. First of all, I just want to say, yesterday there was a problem in Ward 5. There was no signs off of Main Dunstable and Whitford Road to let people know that the pole was over there. So people did complain about Ward 5 yesterday, a lot of complaints. Second of all, I want to say when people agree with me, and even though they can't remember my name, I'm kind of honored with this board. You know, nobody ever agrees with me, although yesterday I had so many people thanking me, especially about the masks with the kids in school, but I kind of feel honored. It is an honor when people come up and thank you for the hard work that we all do on these boards. We don't get credit enough, but that's okay. But I want to say that, you know, here's my problem. My problem is that we're not supposed to say the name of the alderman or alderwoman from the wards. We've always been told we can't say it. So we'd have to say the alderman from Ward 5, or I would say the alderman at large from, you know, kind of point the finger, which is not polite to point either. But I do have a problem with what was said tonight from alderman from Ward 8. Incompetent is not a bad word because there's a lot of incompetent people out there. Let's face it, we know that. It wasn't so much of that as that we, or as elected officials, should not be calling out the public by name. That's wrong because that could be liable, a defamation of character against an elected official. It's more polite to say the member from the audience or a woman or something like that, because if you want decorum, it works both ways. So you shouldn't be calling the public out by name, and we know that, and that's wrong. So let's work it both ways here, because I had problems one time with an alderwoman who verbally attacked me in the parking lot, and I came up here, talked about your code of conduct, I don't know how many times, and asked it to please be changed, and it went on deaf ears. Ears. And I kept saying, this is what this person did to me. I'm a private citizen. I'm not elected. Nobody cared. So it's a two-way street here. I've sat on both sides here. And I get it, what it's like to be on that side when people are so angry at us, and there's not a thing we could do that's going to make them happy. But I also sit on this side when I wasn't elected and saying, you know what, I'm frustrated. And they're going to take it out on us no matter what, their frustration. Whether we can help them or not, this is just the way life is. So I want, if you're going to talk about respect and decorum, it has to work both ways. Thank you.
Remarks by members of the board. I'm going to start on this side tonight. Alderman Tebow.
Thank you, Madam President. Just 2 things. So with regards to that, you know, I wasn't speaking anything bad about anybody in the audience. I was just saying what they had said. That's all public record. As far as the other thing, so the ordinance that we dropped tonight, that we postponed indefinitely, wasn't even my ordinance, but I supported it as a compromise. And in the committee, we decided to compromise and make it at least germane to what the committee was. I thought that was a good compromise. You know, I probably have an email full of how bad I am, and there was one, you know, Mr. Guthrow came up here, and a person from the audience came up here and actually said something good about me, and he's been a critic of mine, and so he actually thought it was a good compromise. He thought we were, as a horseshoe, making a good compromise in a committee meeting, so I thought that was a good thing. But apparently it's not enough to keep on the agenda and to keep it on the table, I guess. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I thought that was one of the few times when anybody's in the last, since we started in January, has really called any of us here together, working together for a compromise on anything. I think I even heard it tonight in the crowd that says we got to be together more, and we're not. So I thought the other ordinance was, but, we just fell just a little bit short, but, that's it, I don't have anything else to say.
Anyone else over here? Alderman Dowd.
The thing that concerns me is that we have members of the public that are sending us countless emails every day, long emails, not just one, there are a handful, and degrading city employees that are doing a fantastic job. They accuse us of overspending, and how could that be when we get AAA ratings and get ranked as one of the 4th best places run cities at least in the East, not the United States. And I think it's time for the board to stand up for our employees and recognize them for the hard job they do. Many of our department heads go out of their way, working countless hours to benefit the city, and then they get trashed by certain members of the public. I don't think that's right. And I've had many constituents say, isn't that bullying? I say, well, I guess that's up to the person listening. But I think it's time that the Board of Aldermen stood up and supported our employees and let the public know that we have great employees doing a very hard job, and we support them fully.
Alderman Camo?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I also just wanted to offer my condolences to Sue and her family. And I also wanted to congratulate everybody who won their primaries yesterday throughout the state, and thank all of the poll workers who worked long hours. I heard a lot of stories about people getting out of there at 3 or 4 o'clock this morning. So I want to thank everybody who helped make sure that our elections happen and continue to happen, and our new clerk as well. So thank you to everybody who was involved in that.
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you. I want to send my condolences out to Sue Lovering and her family in these troubled times. I also want to congratulate our new city clerk on an election that was done very well. I'm sure that although you've done it in Derry, this must have been a heck of a different experience for you. And, welcome to the big city, I guess, at least New Hampshire anyway. But you did a fabulous job. I got in and out of my ward, no problem, and that's kind of what we want, although we do want more people to vote though. So I would say if you didn't get out in the primary, please make sure to mark your calendars for November 8th to get out there and vote. It's the most important part of our democracy. So thank you very much.
Alderman Moran?
Thank you, Madam President. I too would like to send my condolences to Sue Lovering and her family, and also to our city clerk. I was at Ward 7 not too early in the morning, but early in the morning after I dropped my kids off at school, and you were there. I think you were shocked to see an alderman there so early. We usually get out of bed around noon.
Speak for yourself.
But you were holding things down. You were helping Tim and Judy and everyone there who I think maybe they were shorthanded at first or something. You told me the reason you were there to help out, and I'm forgetful, I guess. But good job yesterday. It was really a good day. I'm sorry, I got a couple more things.
Okay.
So as the summer is coming to an end, I just want to thank a couple of organizations in the city that my kids took part in, and I just thought they were great. The Peacock Players, my daughter Summer did one of their summer camps. It was down at the Court Street Theater. And yes, there does need to be a lot of work there. I got to observe one of her plays. Also, the Nashua Community Music School, both my daughters got to attend that through Parks and Recs. They were down at Greeley Park, and they got to do some great learning music from around the world, various other musical activities. And then, of course, it was already discussed before, but the Princess Festival, my daughters loved that, all three of them, and my wife did too, which I wouldn't have expected. And then let's see, 1, 2, 3. Yes, that's the last one. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Clay.
Thank you, Madam President, and I'm sorry to say I'm not going to be quite as brief as my colleagues, but I would like to again send my condolences to the Lovering family and to you, Madam President, for your loss as well.
Thank you.
Madam President and colleagues, again, forgive me for these lengthy comments today, but the truth is that they've been a long time coming. A year ago this month, I lost my 59-year-old brother to health issues. Sunday, I received a call from a very dear cousin that he was diagnosed with esophageal cancer that spread to other organs. And just 2 weeks ago, I personally had a very bad health scare where a simple same-day surgery turned into a 6-day hospital stay, and I'm still recovering from it. I share this information because as a result, it made me realize that how short life is and how important it is to speak out and call out those who seek to hurt the city of Nashua by verbally attacking and harassing employees, city officials, and even citizen volunteers, contractors who do business with the city, and the city business owners who speak in favor of the city. They use bullying and fear to scare the residents into believing that our wonderful city is corrupted on the brink of collapse. In fact, based on financial ratings that we heard today, and after speaking to several New Hampshire communities, I firmly believe that Nashua is one of the most transparent and above-board communities in the entire state of New Hampshire, as well as strong and financially stable. The sad thing is that when an individual that we hear from speaks in such horrific terms about the employees, city officials, citizen volunteers, contractors, city business owners, and the city in general, it brings up very strong negative emotions for too many of our residents, as well as those who are looking for a new place to call home. While I believe that we should all speak out when we feel something is wrong, and we should ask those questions when we don't understand something. And we should also be willing to listen with an open mind and willingness to work with these individuals who are doing their best to answer their never-ending questions. The problem is that when certain individuals seek out to create controversy where there is none, it can stir up anger that can lead to violence. Recently, there was a list that was circulated that included the names of almost all the members of this board with addresses and supposed property valuations. The problem is that it was filled with inaccuracies. In that, it stated that one of the properties was the residence of one of the members here, and in fact, it wasn't. I can tell you that because of such inaccuracies, it puts those that truly live at that residence at risk. My colleague that doesn't live at that address was accused of falsely giving the city and public an incorrect address. Sadly, this type of false statement once led to that home being egged, not by the people making the inaccurate statement, rather by those who were listening and reacting to such words. In my case, I do not own the home that I live in. Yet certain individuals felt that it was okay to try to publicly humiliate the true property owner in posting his information. They listed the property with both of our names as property owners, even though he is the sole owner of the property. Honestly, I joked with him and I thanked him for the surprise gift. And while he does have a great sense of humor about it, he didn't appreciate that his information, while it is public, was posted all over social media. This is the problem when angry people just try to rile up the masses and printing half-truths. Now, having said that, I want to bring up a subject that's going to bring up some strong feelings regardless of what side of the issue you sit, and that is January 6th. It's so infamous that I don't even need to say the year, as I'm sure all of us know the significance of that date. On that date, a handful of individuals riled up a large group of citizens as they spoke full-on lies and half-truths. These individuals were led by an influential person who continued to speak his lie over and over again to the point where even reasonable individuals started to question the voting process here in our country. We all know what happened after that person and those who followed spoke. We had a riot in DC that led to deaths and the loss of trust in this country. The reason I bring up this specific to my previous comments is that words have consequences. And while everyone loves to hate the government, we need to be careful when we hear someone speak so negatively over and over again about our city, the employees within the city, city officials, citizen volunteers, business owners who support the city, and contractors who work with the city. I won't hide that some of those individuals who have spoken on Zoom and at the podium here in the Aldermanic Channel have truly scared me at times. I don't mean necessarily those who have spoken, but rather those that are being falsely riled up by such harsh language and name-calling that too often happens in this chamber. My mother used to say that ignorance is shown when people use foul language and name-calling to make their points. It's something that children do as their brains are still developing, but it's sad when we hear adults, many who have their own young children, display such ignorance. Today, we live in a divisive society where too many have chosen to use violence to settle disputes. Like what happened on January 6th, we are watching a handful of citizens bully those who work in the city and the city officials, business owners who support the city and contractors work the city, and scare the citizens of this beautiful city into believing that Nashua is a corrupt city. Personally, it does scare me, and I think it should scare any normal person that a handful of citizens here in Nashua have made it their goal to hurt our city just to get their 15 minutes to make themselves relevant. I cannot tell you how many constituents and even colleagues in Concord have approached me to speak out against this nonstop attack on Nashua. I will tell you that those from Concord, both sides of the aisle, often say, I am so glad that it is Nashua and not my community. And those that have already felt the wrath of this individual because she once lived there will say, she won't stop until she brings your community to its knees. She lives to divide and she lives to stir up anger. Personally, I don't know if either of those statements are true, but I can say that she has been proven to be wrong, and unlike what she will tell you, she has been proven to be wrong many times over. She gets more and more angry and more determined to hurt our beautiful city. Back many years ago, I still remember this day. I was driving my husband to his treatment at Mass General when I got a call from her yelling at me and saying the most horrific things about individuals in City Hall. I asked her if the DRA were to side with the city, would that stop her without missing a beat? She strongly said no. I must admit she's kept that promise, as shown when she finishes one subject or department, she moves on to another, and when bored with that one, to the next. She's gone beyond the attacks on the city and employees and is now attacking individuals who volunteer on boards and commissions, businesses support decisions by the city, and contractors who work for the city. She and her group have gone to the point where they are now trying to ruin the reputations of those individuals. The results of all these actions will make it nearly impossible for the city to recruit good candidates as employees, department heads, volunteers for boards and commissions, get businesses to move into the city and even contract for the city, and even dissuade good citizens from wanting to run for office. I know that I've probably droned on long enough and I see some eye rolls. And I know by the time I finish the sentence, there will be an army of her individuals that will be attacking me and the truth that I've spoken here today. I'm an elected official, and as such, in some ways, I expect that I have a target on my back. But the employees, city officials, citizen volunteers, business owners, and contractors do not. Madam President, colleagues, thank you for your time, and I want to say that I will continue to educate the public about these individuals who are trying to do what they're trying to do to the city, and these actions are costing our city dearly. The truth is that I would love to see the whole board, as I believe my colleague from Ward 2 mentioned, standing united against such hate, bullying, and harassment of the city and its employees. Thank you, Madam President.
Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam President. Okay. I would like to get off on a good start here and welcome Mr. Sam Durfee to the city of Nashua. Welcome aboard, sir. Is he still here? Did he leave? It's almost past my bedtime too. So welcome to him. And I do want to thank all of the poll workers at Ward 9 yesterday. It was fantastic to get out to New Searles yesterday. See a lot of folks that I haven't seen. My kids haven't been in that school in a long time, so it was fantastic to see all the teachers still there. And those elections are very well run, so kudos to you, sir. Well done. That's it.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President. You wouldn't believe my state of shock. I've been, for me, it's kind of not usual, but I must have been out of the loop. I didn't know of the passing of Roy Lovering, and I found that as a shock as I came into the chamber. I have been long friends with Sue, particularly even before I became an alderman, and worked with her. And I've always known her to be a loving wife. And unfortunately, towards the end, it sometimes does happen, the wife ends up being a caregiver. And I know that she was a loving caregiver to Roy. And so I would definitely like to offer my condolences and in a way to kind of thank her for the loving care that she did give to her husband during that particular time. And to you, Madam President, unfortunately I was out of town and I did not get to come to share in your grief and the passing of your mother too. So I would like to publicly admit my condolences. Unfortunately, as Irish, we do love a good wake, but unfortunately I was unable to make it. But our thoughts and prayers of the O'Brien clan were with you at that particular time. And on a good note, I would like to welcome aboard the new gentleman. I'm not going to get your name correct. I'll have to meet you personally. But I think that's a division that definitely needs some help. It's a very important division. And Mr. Sullivan, I'm glad that he got some help there to work with that, because it's instrumental to much of the things that Alderman Clee said, that we are a good city. And having a division such as this helps us grow. That's what makes us a good city. That's why we're doing so well. So keep up the good work. And to the city clerk, I know you haven't got an official name tag for your desk yet. But from what I've seen and heard with the election, you've done a fine job and coming in. And so I compliment on you, and hopefully it was a good experience and get you ready for the next one coming up and everything. So fine job. Thank you. And thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. I too would like to offer my condolences to the Lovering family. Sue worked as our legislative manager for over 20 years. She did a great job for us, just a nice person, a nice family, and I'm really sorry for her family. I'd also like to thank all of you for the beautiful flowers and all the sympathy and condolences that were sent my way. I really appreciate that. It was a difficult time losing my mother, but I felt the love, so thank you all very much. I'd also like to thank all the poll workers and the police department who had officers at the polls yesterday. I think it's important that we continue to thank our poll workers, because they do thankless work over there. I mean, they put in 16-hour days, some longer. I know, Mr. Clerk, your day was longer. 16 would have been a breeze, right? But I mean, in getting people to volunteer to do that is a lot of work. I know my son is a clerk in Ward 4, and he spends, I don't know, weeks calling people and, hey, do you still want to? It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work that people don't even see when they get to the polls. A lot goes into it. So I'd like to thank all the ward workers in all 9 wards for the great day, the great job they did yesterday. And that's all I have. And thank you, Mr. Clerk. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President.
No.
Oh, excuse me.
Committee announcements. Sorry. Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Madam President. Tuesday, September 20th, Planning and Economic Development Committee will be meeting to discuss the Riverfront TIF and the fees associated for restaurants that will come through the expanded outdoor dining. And that will be a presentation from both by the wonderful Director Cummings from Economic Development. And he'll provide an update on both of those as we hit the work his department is doing to make those things come to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you. Other committee announcements? Alderman Dowd.
Doing Special School Building Committee on the 22nd at 7 o'clock at the Nashua High North.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Thank you, Madam President. The Cultural Connection Festival is this Saturday from 1 to 4. Finally, I would like to see all of you guys there, all of you guys. Don't pick and choose with things you want to go to, but I like community things. And I'd like to see you guys at the community function supporting that event. It's going to be fun.
Thank you.
Point of order. I'm sorry. Thank you, Madam President. I had a question. Can I ask a general question?
Yes.
Maybe through you to the mayor. I recently, and I saw a posting from Alderman Tebow on it. How do we find out about some of these get-togethers or there was a celebration for the Brazil's independence. I'm not sure how we can get it on an email list or distribution list or something so we can attend those things. I know I saw the post from the gentleman from Ward 8 had mentioned it, and I thought, hey, that's a great idea. I would love to come to business openings and all these other things. I know sometimes we get invites from the alderman from Ward 2 for construction stuff, but I think other stuff would be great to just be added onto an email.
Well, sometimes they're organized by outside people and we kind of just attend, but we'll try, we should do a better job of keeping getting the notice out. Because like today, it was really nice, this Brazilian flag raising and the celebration of the
200th anniversary of Brazilian independence, and it would have been better if we'd been able to get you notice of that so you could come along.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to motion that the September 14, 2022 meeting of the Board of Aldermen be adjourned.
Motion is to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 9:04 PM. Thank you, everyone.